Well, hey, I am so glad you are doing this course with us. This series is all about clarity around the mission of Jesus and our need for it in the church. You see, the reality is, over time, it's natural for us to lose clarity around the mission of Jesus. You see, whenever a church is started, there is extreme clarity on what the church is called to. This clarity happens because there's a clear focus on the purpose of the church. But over years, it's common for the church to begin to get a little blurry around the vision and mission. This only intensifies as leadership experiences change. That is, as a lead pastor leaves or as key leaders on the church rotate off the leadership team, think elders or council. Well, as they rotate off, clarity and conviction about the mission often leave with these leaders. And this only intensifies if there has not been considerable effort in leadership development and church DNA transfer from these existing leaders to upcoming leaders. You see, as churches, we often don't realize that we have lost clarity around the mission of the church until we have some kind of missional eye test. So when I was in high school, I thought I had great vision. I played sports, I did fine at school, I could see the board, I thought my eyes were great. But that all changed one day when I lost my wallet and had to go to the DMV to get a new license. I go to the DMV, and part of that process was doing an eye test. And so I'm doing this eye test, and I realized my vision is awful. It was so bad, they wouldn't even give me a new license. I had to get glasses. This can happen to us as leaders. We can think we are doing well as a church, and we have clarity around the mission because we are experiencing somewhat of comfort. You know, we have money in the bank, we have people coming, the church is functioning well, we have leaders on our teams. But then someone can ask us a question like this: how come we don't see more people from outside the church, like people who aren't followers of Jesus here on Sundays? Or maybe someone asks us, is it normal to not have a lot of baptisms? Like, isn't that something we're supposed to be doing all the time? Or maybe the question comes, are we growing? And if we are growing, like, how much of that is transfer growth, and how much of that is, the gospel changing lives? Or in a moment of clarity, you as a leader begin to wonder, is anyone in our congregation sharing the gospel? And as you begin to explore that question, you begin to see that the answer is simply no. You see, it's in these moments that you sense maybe something isn't right. It's in these moments that you realize maybe your missional clarity isn't as strong as you thought it would. See, these are missional eye test moments. The missional eye chart is in front of us. We're going through it line by line, only to realize that all the letters are fuzzy. Our missional vision isn't quite as strong as we thought it was. It's in these moments we begin to realize that the clarity we assume has actually been lacking. So how do we get clarity back? Well, that's what this whole series is about. We are going through it with you to help you as a team begin to regain clarity around the mission of the church and how you can move forward in it. But the first step is diagnosing where you're at as a church. It's figuring out, why did you lose missional clarity to start with? When missional clarity is lacking, we often find ourselves in missional murkiness because of one of two ditches that we can move towards. And as we move towards these ditches, we will always lose sight of the mission. All right, what's the first ditch? Well, the first ditch is becoming missionally passive. Missionally passive, what does that mean? Well, it's when our churches move from describing, living out what Jesus described, in Matthew 16, 13 and 20, this picture of the church pushing into enemy territory, right? He said, the gates of hell cannot stop us. It's churches moving from that active pushing the enemy toward territory to playing defense. That's where, we decide to not move out into mission. We want to stay back and kind of retreat from the world around us. This can happen for a few reasons. One, we look at the world and it's becoming more hostile towards Christians, more hostile towards our faith. We see the church compromising its faith, and we think, well, the best thing we can do is withdraw from the wider culture, and in doing so, we withdraw from mission. Another reason we move towards being missionally passive, well, it's because we see significant issues in our church that need to be dealt with. This happened during COVID-19, for example, right? During COVID, our focus, and rightfully so, was on just making sure our people were okay. There was a massive issue. And so we pivoted from really looking outward at all to just focusing inward and making sure our churches were doing all right. Our people were doing okay. And that meant mission taking the back seat. Now, the question is, as we come out of COVID, are we moving back towards mission? And a lot of us are finding that hard. It's hard to reach out again. We become passive to it. We become passive towards the lost. We live really uninformed about the spiritual reality around us. We know people don't know Jesus, but we lack any urgency, any desire to go to them. Instead, we think just opening our doors on Sunday is all we need to do. Our missional mantra is, if we build it, they will come. But that is missionally being passive. That's missional passivity. This might look like us becoming more program focused as a church. We exchange mission for program. We believe we just offer the right programs that address the right felt needs in our community. And if we advertise it and open our doors, people will come. And you know what? They might. Although I would argue, as we move further and further into a post-Christian society, that this will become less and less the reality. But we feel like we're accomplishing the mission by just being there as a church, when the reality is we're not going out to the world around us. The second ditch that we can move towards is one called missional assimilation. Missional assimilation understands that the church is called to go out into the world around them. But as they do that, there's this realization that there's a large gap between our faith and where the culture around us is. And this gap is filled with tension due to what we believe in our faith. You see, you and I, as followers of Jesus, we are the rebels in our society. We are the outcasts because of our beliefs. Right? Think about what we believe about sexuality or about biblical views on gender. Think about who we proclaim Jesus to be, or think about just simply sin. All those things are not accepted in our world. And anytime we confess them or vocalize them, we become pushed further and further towards the margins and demonized, which makes mission harder. So those who move towards the direction of missional assimilation realize this, and so they focus less and less on core Christian orthodoxy and more on social issues. We don't evangelize, but we become focused on the issues of the moment, whether they're political, social, or global. We become deeply invested in these and bring them to light. We can provide biblical justification for this, right? We say Jesus came to the cities to bring healing, to meet the poor, so we will too. The issue is we neglect the other reality that Jesus called people to repent. In an attempt to show the community around us that we aren't as bad as they think we are, we actually never get to the gospel. We don't confront the reality of sin. We don't present Jesus as the hope of the world. And as we do this, we slowly lose our saltiness. We lose the unique hope and message of our faith, and thus we lose missional clarity. See, the clarity we need comes in part when we understand that Jesus has called us to be committed to going beyond the walls of our church to bring the untamed countercultural message of Jesus to the world around us. If we want to see our cities, towns, villages, and communities reached with the good news of Jesus, first, we have to know what that good news is. But second, and just as important, we have to actually go to them. We have to go to them. The we here is not just the paid staff in the church, it's not just the leaders, but it's this understanding that all of us as followers of Jesus are missionaries in our places of influence. That the church, as it leaves the building, is sent out each week on mission to the sin-sick world around us who desperately needs the hope of the gospel. As Christians continue to become the bad guys, the rebels in our society, the temptation to move towards one of these two ditches will only increase. So the question that we need to start with is, which ditch are you as leaders moving towards? Which ditch as we as churches are moving towards? Where is our tendencies? We need to know what these are. We must fight for clarity around what the mission of the church is and how we can best engage it in our culture faithfully.